Picture this. It's 2031, 5 years from today. Two neighbors, same street, same zip code, roughly the same income in 2026. One of them is sitting at his kitchen table, opening his laptop, watching his portfolio cross $400,000 for the first time. He's not stressed about his job. He's not checking his bank balance before buying groceries. He owns things, quiet, boring things that have been working for him every single day while he slept, while he worked, while he lived his life. The other one, still working, has to keep working, not because she loves it, because she has to. Her savings account has $6,000 in it, her $401,000 barely moved. Her biggest asset is a car that loses value every month, and she looks at her neighbor and genuinely cannot understand what he did differently. Same neighborhood, same starting point, completely different destination. And I want to tell you something that financial television will never say out loud. The difference between those two people will not be decided by who got luckier, who earned more, or who worked harder. It will be decided by what they owned. I've spent the last 3 years obsessively studying one question. Why do two people with nearly identical incomes end up in completely different financial realities a decade later? The answer is always the same. One of them owns assets, the other one owns liabilities and calls them assets. Today, I'm going to walk you through 20 specific assets, real, buyable, ownable things that rich people have been quietly accumulating while everyone else was distracted by inflation headlines and election cycles. And stay until the very end, because asset number 20 is the one that makes every single other asset on this list actually work. Most people never figure it out. The ones who do, they're the neighbors you'll be wondering about in 2031. Let's go. Before we get to the list, I need to give you a framework that will permanently change how you see money. There are two types of people in the American economy right now. People who own assets and people who rent their financial lives month to month, paycheck to paycheck, always one bad month away from a crisis. Here's what nobody explains clearly enough. An asset is anything that either puts money in your pocket, grows in value over time, or does both simultaneously. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket consistently month after month, year after year. And here's the cruel irony that keeps most Americans broke their entire working lives. Most people spend 40 years accumulating liabilities while convincing themselves they're building wealth. That new car in the driveway liability. The vacation you put on a card liability. The subscription services quietly draining $200 a month liabilities, plural. Warren Buffett, arguably the greatest wealth builder in modern history, has said something that should be tattooed on every 25-year-old's wall. He said the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. What he means is this: rich people are ruthlessly selective about what they own. They are not trying to have more things, they are trying to own more things that work for them. In 2026, that distinction matters more than it ever has, because inflation is running at 3.8%. The average credit card rate just hit 23.79%. And the gap between people who own productive assets and people who don't is widening faster than at any point in the last 40 years. The next 5 years will create more quiet millionaires than any period in recent memory, and it will leave more people permanently behind than most economists want to admit. The difference will be this list. Pay close attention to assets number 5, number 12, and number 17. Those are the ones that most financial content creators completely ignore, and they might be the most important 3 on the entire list. Let's build your portfolio. The 20 assets. Asset number 1, total market index funds. This is the foundation, not the exciting part, the foundation. A total market index fund gives you ownership in literally thousands of American companies, large, medium, and small, in a single purchase. Not a bet on one company, not a guess about which sector wins. Ownership in the entire American economy. John Bogle, the man who invented index funds and quietly changed how millions of Americans build wealth, said something that still holds true decades later. He said the stock market is a giant distraction from the business of investing. What he meant, stop trying to beat the market, own the market, collect your share of American corporate profits every year for decades and let compounding do the rest. At a 7% real return, the historical average after inflation money doubles roughly every 10 years. $50,000 invested at 40 becomes $100,000 at 50, $200,000 at 60, $400,000 at 70. No stock picks, no market timing, no financial advisor taking 1.5% of your portfolio every year. Just ownership, quiet, boring, relentless ownership. Asset number 2, dividend-paying stocks. If index funds are the engine, dividend stocks are the paycheck the engine generates. These are companies Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble that have paid rising cash dividends to shareholders for 25, 30, 50 consecutive years, through recessions, through pandemics, through wars. The check kept coming. Here's what most people miss about dividends. In your 30s and 40s, you reinvest them and they compound silently in the background. But in your 50s and 60s, those same dividends become a genuine income stream, a paycheck that arrives whether you work or not, whether the market is up or down. $500,000 in quality dividend payers yielding 4% generates $20,000 a year in income, automatically, passively, permanently. And here's the part that makes dividend stocks genuinely powerful. Unlike a savings account, the dividend amount typically grows every year. You don't just get a fixed check, you get a check that inflates alongside the cost of living. Asset number 3, rental real estate. A single rental property bought correctly in the right market can replace a meaningful portion of your retirement income entirely. And in 2026, the math behind rental real estate has never been more straightforward. America is short approximately 4 to 7 million housing units, a structural shortage that takes a decade or more to fix. What does a structural shortage do to rents over time? It pushes them up, steadily, year after year. A $280,000 rental property generating $1,400 a month in rent, after mortgage and expenses netting $250 a month, doesn't sound dramatic. But combine that with 4% annual appreciation and the tenant paying down your mortgage every month, and in 10 years, you've built a 6-figure asset largely with someone else's money. That's 3 simultaneous returns from one asset. Almost nothing else in finance gives you that. Asset number 4, REITs, real estate without the landlord problems. This is the one people sleep on, and they shouldn't. A real estate investment trust lets you own income-producing real estate, apartment complexes, medical offices, data centers, cell towers, warehouses without buying a single property, without managing a single tenant, and with as little as $100 to start. By federal law, REITs must distribute at least 90% of their taxable income to shareholders as dividends. That's not a marketing promise, that is a legal requirement. And in 2026, one category of REITs deserves specific attention: data center rates. Every AI model, every cloud application, every streaming service runs inside a physical data center sitting on physical land. You don't have to pick the winning AI company, you can own the real estate underneath all of them. Asset number 5, and pay close attention here, I-bonds and tips. This is the first one most financial content creators skip entirely, and it's a mistake. Treasury inflation-protected securities tips are bonds issued by the U.S. government whose principal value automatically adjusts upward as inflation rises. If inflation runs hot over the next 5 years, your TIPS position grows in real time to match it. You don't have to predict inflation, the asset responds to it for you. I-bonds work similarly. They're savings bonds whose interest rate is tied directly to the CPI inflation index. In 2022, when inflation peaked, I-bonds were paying over 9%. guaranteed by the U.S. government. For anyone building a serious portfolio in 2026, having 5 to 10% in inflation-protected government securities is not conservative. It's intelligent risk management. Asset number 6, high-yield savings accounts. Boring, completely necessary, absolutely. For the first time in nearly 20 years, you can earn meaningful interest on cash you're holding for safety. The best high-yield savings accounts in June 2026 are paying around 4 to 4.2% fully FDIC insured, same access as a checking account. Here's the number that should make you angry. $20,000 sitting in a traditional big bank checking account earns approximately $2 per year. The same $20,000 in a high-yield savings account at 4% earns $800 per year. $798 more per year for moving your money one time. That's not investing. That's just not leaving free money on the table. Asset number 7, gold and precious metals. Not as speculation, as insurance. Gold has preserved purchasing power for over 5,000 years. Every paper currency in human history has eventually been debased or collapsed. Gold has not. Here's the context most people don't have. Central banks across China, India, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia have been buying gold at record pace for the past 3 consecutive years. These are not emotional retail investors making a bet. These are national governments positioning for a shift in the global monetary system. When central banks accumulate gold this aggressively, retail investors historically follow years later at higher prices. Owning 5 to 10% of your portfolio in gold, physical, ETF, or minor stocks is not a doomsday position. It's a hedge. If everything goes well, your other assets carry the returns. If things get messy, that small gold position protects the rest. Asset number 8, a paid-off primary home. Notice the word paid off, not mortgaged, paid off. A fully owned home is one of the most powerful defensive assets in existence. No landlord can raise your rent. No lender can foreclose. In retirement on a fixed income, that security is not a small thing, it is potentially life-changing. The average American rent has risen significantly over the past decade. Economists expect that trend to continue through the rest of this decade because of the housing shortage we discussed. Imagine being 72 years old on Social Security, watching your rent increase $300 a year, every year. That is the financial reality millions of American retirees are living right now. A paid-off home eliminates that variable permanently. Your housing cost becomes property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. In many states, that's under $6,000 a year. Compare that to $24,000 in annual rent. That $18,000 annual difference invested is generational wealth. Asset number 9, a small business or side income stream. Even a simple side business generating $800 a month in net income is mathematically equivalent to having an extra $240,000 invested at a 4% yield. Most people never do that math, and it's striking when you see it clearly. In 2026, the barrier to starting a small business has collapsed. AI tools that previously required a team of 8 people now cost $50 a month. A consulting practice, a bookkeeping service, a niche content business, a freelance design operation, these are not fantasies. These are income streams real people are building today, often in their 40s and 50s, using skills they've spent decades developing. The Millionaire Next Door, one of the most rigorous studies ever done on actual American wealth, found that self-employed business owners are significantly overrepresented among American millionaires relative to their share of the population. That is not a coincidence, that is a pattern. Asset number 10, intellectual property. A book, an online course, a digital product, a patent, photography, music. Once created, these assets can generate income for decades with minimal additional effort. This is one of the most counterintuitive wealth realities of the modern economy. The internet created something that did not exist in any previous generation: permanently searchable, infinitely distributable intellectual property that sells itself 24 hours a day in every country on Earth without you being present. A course you record over one weekend can sell 1,000 times without you ever touching it again. A book you write in your 40s can pay royalties into your 70s. Over the next 5 years, as more learning and commerce moves online, and as people increasingly seek guidance from those with real experience, the window to package your expertise into a paid product has never been wider or more accessible. Asset number 11, the Roth IRA. The word Roth is one of the most valuable words in the American tax code. You contribute money you've already paid taxes on. In return, every dollar of growth, every year of compounding for the next 20, 30, 40 years, the government never touches again. Not at retirement, not ever. For 2026, the contribution limit is $7,500, $8,600 if you're 50 or older. Why does this matter so urgently right now? Because the United States is carrying historically unprecedented levels of federal debt. Most serious tax economists, regardless of political affiliation, agree that income tax rates are more likely to rise over the coming decades than fall. Every dollar you move into a Roth today is a dollar permanently protected from future tax increases. You are locking in today's tax rate forever. For someone in their 40s or 50s, aggressively funding a Roth IRA or doing Roth conversions from a traditional IRA may be one of the highest return financial decisions of their entire life. Asset number 12, and this one shocks people, the HSA. The health savings account is the only account in the American tax code with a triple tax advantage. Money goes in tax-free, it grows tax-free, it comes out tax-free for qualified medical expenses. The IRS taxes Olympic medals, the IRS taxes gambling winnings, the IRS taxes inherited money, but the HSA, they waive it through 3 times. It is the only account where the government never gets a bite from any angle. For 2026, the contribution limit is $4,400 for individuals, $8,750 for families. Here's the strategy almost nobody executes. Most people treat their HSA like a medical debit card: money in, money out on doctor visits. That's fine, but it's a massive missed opportunity. If you have the cash flow to pay routine medical costs out of pocket, you can let your HSA sit invested in index funds, growing completely tax-free for 20 or 30 years. Healthcare costs for the average American couple in retirement now exceed $300,000 over their lifetimes. An HSA funded aggressively starting in your 40s can become a dedicated tax-free war chest that covers those costs without touching your other retirement accounts. That is not a small advantage. That is potentially a $250,000 advantage. Asset number 13, municipal bonds. Boring name, quietly powerful. Municipal bonds are debt issued by cities, counties, school districts, and state governments to fund infrastructure: roads, schools, hospitals, water systems. Here's what makes them genuinely interesting in 2026. The interest is federally tax-free. For Americans in higher tax brackets, a municipal bond paying 4% tax-free is mathematically equivalent to a taxable bond paying 5.5% or more. That is a significant hidden advantage that almost nobody under 50 ever discusses. These are not speculative bets. These are boring, necessary, long-duration projects that have paid investors reliably for generations. And with massive infrastructure spending flowing through state and local governments right now, the supply of high-quality municipal bonds is expanding, and so is the opportunity for patient investors. Asset number 14, blue-chip growth stocks. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon. Yes, they feel expensive. They have always felt expensive to someone. And yet, the investors who bought them when they felt expensive in 2010, in 2015, in 2018 are sitting on returns that changed their financial lives. The pattern is consistent across decades. Dominant companies with enormous competitive advantages, massive free cash flow, and global scale held patiently tend to compound in ways that surprise even professional analysts. Over the next 5 years, artificial intelligence, cloud infrastructure, and global digital expansion will likely benefit these same companies more than almost any other category. You don't need a large position. You need a patient, consistent one. Asset number 15, agricultural land and timberland. Warren Buffett owns farmland. Bill Gates is one of the largest private farmland owners in America. That is not a coincidence. They understand something most retail investors don't. Land that produces food or timber is one of the most resilient assets ever created. Populations grow. The amount of arable land does not. That simple equation has quietly powered farmland returns for generations with far less volatility than the stock market. You don't need to buy 500 acres. Specialized platforms and farmland REITs now let you invest in agricultural land with as little as $10,000. As global food demand rises over the next decade, this asset class will attract serious institutional capital. Getting in before the crowd arrives is exactly how patient investors have always built wealth. Asset number 16, 400 and 1,000 up to the full match and beyond. This is the most overlooked guaranteed return in American finance. A typical employer match, your company matches 50 cents for every dollar you contribute, up to 6% of your salary. On a $70,000 salary, contributing 6% $4,200 a year triggers a $2,100 employer match. That is a guaranteed, immediate, risk-free 50% return on your money before the market does anything at all. No hedge fund, no crypto play, no real estate deal offers a guaranteed 50% return. Your benefits portal does. For 2026, the 400 and 1,000 contribution limit is $24,500. If you're 50 or older, you can add another $7,500 in catch-up contributions. Capture the full match first, then work toward the cap as income allows. Asset number 17, and pay very close attention here, strategic cash reserves. Not your emergency fund, strategic cash. This is the asset most financial content completely ignores. And it might be the most powerful wealth-building tool on this entire list, not because of what it earns, but because of what it enables. In 1929, people with cash bought entire city blocks at pennies on the dollar. In 2008, people with cash bought real estate at 50% discounts. In March 2020, people with cash bought S&P 500 index funds at 34% off. Warren Buffett holds tens of billions in cash at Berkshire Hathaway, not because cash earns great returns, but because cash converts market panics into opportunity. The next 5 years will almost certainly contain at least one significant market disruption. Job cuts driven by AI are accelerating. Commercial real estate is under stress. Geopolitical uncertainty is elevated. These are not reasons to panic. They are reasons to have dry powder ready. Strategic cash, 6 to 12 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account beyond your emergency fund is a financial weapon. It transforms crashes from threats into opportunities. Most people are fully invested when markets fall. They're forced to watch. The person with strategic cash gets to buy. Asset number 18, your own skills and earning power. Tony Robbins has said for decades that the highest return investment available to most people is investment in their own earning capacity. The math is undeniable. A $200 online certification that raises your income by $8,000 a year over a 15-year career generates $120,000 of additional lifetime earnings. That is a 60,000% return on $200. No stock, no real estate investment, no asset on this list will ever match that ratio for most people. And in 2026, the urgency has intensified. AI is reshaping entire job categories. The gap between workers who actively upgrade their skills and workers who don't is widening faster than at any point in modern history. Stanford researchers tracking employment data found that workers in AI-exposed roles who actively reskill are dramatically outperforming those who don't in both income and job security. Investing in yourself is not soft advice. In 2026, it is survival strategy. Asset number 19: term life insurance and umbrella liability protection. This one isn't glamorous, it never makes a highlight reel, and it is absolutely essential. The Millionaire Next Door, the most thorough study ever conducted on real American wealth builders, found one consistent pattern among people who actually kept their money long-term. They were obsessive about protection. Term life insurance if you have dependents, an umbrella liability policy once you have meaningful assets, a basic will and power of attorney. Here's the math that matters. You spend years building a portfolio worth $300,000, one lawsuit, one judgment, one uninsured accident, gone without proper protection. An umbrella liability policy covering $1 million in additional liability costs approximately $150 to $300 per year. That is the cheapest asset on this entire list. And it protects everything else you've built. Wealth is not just about accumulation, it's about protection. The two work together or neither works at all. Asset number 20, the one nobody talks about. I promised you this one at the beginning, and I kept it for last deliberately because without this asset, the other 19 are just a list you read once and forget. Asset number 20 is your financial attention span. Not your intelligence, not your income, not your connections. Your ability to stay focused on building wealth quietly, consistently, without being distracted by noise for years, for decades, is the rarest and most valuable asset in the modern economy. Think about what the average American attention is competing against right now. Infinite scroll, breaking news alerts, market panic headlines, the next hot stock tip, the viral real estate deal. The crypto play that's going to change everything. Every single one of those things is engineered by very smart, very well-funded people to pull your attention away from the boring, consistent, unsexy work of actually building wealth. Morgan Housel in The Psychology of Money makes an observation that should stop you cold. He says the most important financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving, knowing when enough is enough. Staying the course when staying the course is boring. The people who built serious wealth on normal incomes did not do it by finding the best asset. They did it by staying consistently invested in good assets for longer than everyone else could tolerate. That is asset number 20, your capacity for patient, consistent, boring actions sustained across years and decades regardless of what the headlines say. It is the rarest thing in finance, and it is the one asset nobody can sell you. Why most people still fail. Here's the uncomfortable question. If this information is available, if these 20 assets are real and accessible, why do 80% of Americans over 50 report feeling financially stressed? The answer is not laziness. The answer is not stupidity. The answer is that the entire consumer economy is specifically engineered to keep you consuming instead of owning. You turn on the television ads for cars, vacations, phones, clothes. You open your mail credit card offers. You go online, every algorithm optimized to get you to spend. But nobody knocks on your door and says, "Have you thought about buying index funds this month?" Nobody sends you an alert that says, "Your Roth IRA needs a contribution." Nobody profits when you build wealth quietly. Everybody profits when you spend. The old advice, save more, spend less, is dangerously incomplete. Saving alone in an environment where inflation runs 3.8% is mathematically losing purchasing power every single year. The shift that changes everything is this: stop trying to earn your way to wealth, start trying to own your way to wealth. Because in the next 5 years, the gap between earners and owners is going to become impossible to ignore. Start this week. Not next month, not after the holidays, this week. Step 1. Do an honest audit. Write down every asset and every liability you currently own. Most people have never done this. The clarity alone changes behavior. Step 2. Move your emergency fund to a high-yield savings account paying at least 4%. If you have $15,000 sitting in a checking account earning nothing, that one move is worth $600 a year for zero additional work. Step 3. Capture your full employer 400 and 1,000 match immediately if you haven't. This is the guaranteed 50% return. Do it today. Step 4. Open a Roth IRA if you don't have one. Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, any of them. Set up an automatic monthly contribution, even $100 a month. The amount is less important than starting. Step 5. Pick one asset from this list that fits your situation and focus on it for the next 90 days. 1 REIT, 1 dividend stock position, 1 side income experiment. Momentum starts with one decision executed consistently. Step 6. Eliminate high-interest debt aggressively. Carrying a credit card balance at 23.79% while trying to earn 7% in the market is a math problem that only has one answer: kill the debt first. Step 7. Protect what you're building. Term life insurance if you have dependents. An umbrella policy once your assets are meaningful. A basic will. This is the part people skip and then spend years regretting. Remember those 2 neighbors from the beginning of this video. 5 years from today, one of them will look back and pinpoint the exact moment things changed. Not a dramatic moment, not a lottery win, not a single genius investment. Just a quiet decision made in 2026 to start owning things instead of just earning things. The window is open right now, the assets are accessible, the information is in front of you. The only question is whether you act on it this week or bookmark this video, tell yourself you'll come back to it, and find yourself watching the 2031 version of this same content wondering why nothing changed. Your future self is being built right now, by what you own, by what you protect, by how consistently you show up for the boring work of building wealth when nobody is watching. Start this week. If this gave you one thing worth acting on, subscribe, because every week I break down exactly how money actually works for people on normal incomes. No fluff, no hype, just the mechanics. See you next week.